evening. It's now 6 o'clock, and the July 28th special meeting of the Dublin Centermont Services District Board of Directors is called to order. Can we pledge the flag? Item 2, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Thank you. Item 3, roll call, please.
Director Goel,
Present.
Director Duarte,
Here.
Director Von Heater-Leopold,
Here.
Vice President Govindarao,
Here.
President Halkett.
I'm present. Okay, item 4, special announcements and activity.
No special announcements.
Item 5, public comment. I have no blue cards, nothing online. Know everybody in the room. Okay. Move on from item 5 then. Item 6, agenda management. I assume we're going straight.
Straight through.
Awesome. The only thing I would note is I think we have a substitute resolution on our workstations for, I'm not sure which item, but we'll figure it out when we get there. All right, consent calendar. These are things we normally take as a unit. I have a consent calendar 7A through 7C. Anybody want to pull anything for some discussion? Nothing from the crowd? Okay. Do I have a motion for the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. We're ready for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Perfect. That dispenses item 7. Item 8. 8A, public hearing. Approve annual delinquent water and sewer charge levy report and direct levy and collection of delinquent water and sewer charges on the 2026-2027 Alameda County and Contra Costa County secured property tax rolls. We're going to hold a public hearing, and then we'll hash this out and potentially approve it. So let's open the public hearing. And first order of business is staff presentation.
Good afternoon, President Halkett, members of the board. Jaden Sanga, Director of Finance for DSRSD. With tonight's public hearing, staff is seeking approval of the annual delinquent water and sewer charges levy report and direct the levy and collection of fiscal year 2027 Alameda and Contra Costa County secured property tax roll. And with that, we have Alberto Hernandez presenting this item.
Good evening, President Halkett, members of the board. My name is Alberto Hernandez, Finance Supervisor with the Utility and Customer Service Division. This evening, staff requests that the board hold a public hearing and approve by resolution the annual delinquency water and sewer charges levy report and direct the levy and collection of the delinquent water and sewer charges on the secured property tax rolls for Alameda County and Contra Costa County for fiscal year 2026-27. The district bills customers bi-monthly for water and sewer services, and bills are due upon receipt or within 30 days from the bill date. When bills are unpaid past the 30 days from the bill date, staff issue past due notices to customers advising them to submit a payment immediately to avoid further penalties and prevent a discontinuance of service. Most delinquent accounts are paid off after they receive the past due notices. For accounts with outstanding balances, courtesy phone calls are made to request payment before taking additional action. For active accounts, hand tag notices are hand delivered to the property, providing a 7-day shut-off notice, and accounts that remain unpaid are shut off until a payment is received or the customer enrolls in a payment arrangement. These actions are taken to manage and reduce delinquencies. Unfortunately, these types of proactive measures are not available for collecting unpaid charges on closed accounts. For closed accounts with unpaid charges, the district code authorizes the recovery of delinquent balances through placement on the secured property tax roll or through other legal remedies, such as referral to a collection agency. Many of the accounts included in this year's annual delinquency report were referred to a collection agency, and their efforts to collect on our behalf were unsuccessful. As of today, July 28, 2026, a total of 19 accounts have outstanding delinquent balances totaling $7,531.63 of unpaid charges. On May 6th, and July 1st of 2026, formal notices were mailed out to the affected property owners, informing them of the district's intent to collect the unpaid charges on the property tax roll, provided notice of the public hearing, and provided general information on ways to resolve the delinquent balances, including available payment options. In addition to the mail notices, staff made multiple attempts to contact the account holders in an effort to collect the unpaid charges. Staff also published notices of the public hearing in the Bay Area News Group on July 14th and July 21, 2026. Property owners may pay their balances up through August 3rd, 2026 before the final report is submitted to the counties. As of today, July 28, 2026, no formal protests were received for this item. At the October 7, 2025 board meeting, the board directed staff to consider improvements in communication with property owners regarding their joint responsibility for unpaid water and sewer charges incurred by tenants at rental properties. In response to this direction, staff implemented the following improvements. First, staff is currently coordinating with the City of San Ramon's Community Development Department and the City of Dublin's Code Enforcement Division to provide outreach materials to property owners of rental properties. Staff are finalizing an informational flyer to share with both cities that will provide property owners with general information regarding their shared responsibility of unpaid water and sewer charges at their rental properties and ways to prevent unpaid charges from being collected on their property taxes. Secondly, staff began issuing delinquent notices to property owners when there's a prolonged delinquency on the tenant's account. These include accounts that could not be resolved through the enforcement of the district's discontinuance of residential water service for non-payment policy and require coordination with the property owners to resolve the delinquency. Through these efforts, staff are able to notify property owners when their utility accounts become delinquent, allowing us to work collaboratively with property owners to keep water service active at their properties. Finally, staff have expanded disclosures regarding the condition of service and account delinquencies. Staff have updated the district's Understanding Your Bill webpage and the back of bills to include information regarding delinquencies and the possibility of levying unpaid charges on the property tax rolls. Staff have also added an important disclosure section to the online application, requiring applicants to confirm that they have read and agreed to the terms of service and are aware of the steps the district may take if an account becomes delinquent. Through these efforts, along with staff's consistent enforcement of the discontinuance of service policy, we have seen a substantial reduction in number of delinquent accounts. This improvement is reflected in the 19 accounts being levied this year compared to 93 accounts levied last year. With that, staff recommends that the board adopt by resolution the annual delinquency water and sewer charge levy report for fiscal year 2026-27 and direct staff to proceed with collecting the delinquent charges on the secure property tax rolls in both counties. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent. Thank you for the nice report. Public comments. Nothing. I have no cards. Nothing.
Comments received.
Yeah. Help them out. Pull a card and it's. Yeah. Or just come up.
Good evening. My name is Nate Mack. I'm property at 8869 Bandon Drive. I believe I spoke to Mr. Hernandez earlier this year. I had my property rented and I moved back into it on October 1st. I put the water bill in my name and I was for the first time told that I had a outstanding bill of $1,790 something on my account. I had never been informed that my account was delinquent. I had never signed anything saying that I had agreed to that, but yet I'm hearing that I'm supposed to be responsible for an account that I did not agree to. I'm not sure why the customer's water wasn't shut off, or I was at least informed that this was happening, because I don't know how an amount of $1,700 something got accumulated and now I'm supposed to pay that. It sounds illegal to me, the fact that I didn't sign anything, the fact that I wasn't informed of anything. And the only reason why I'm assuming this was stopped was because I moved the tenants out of the property and I moved in myself. Otherwise, that amount would have still been accumulating. So if you have a program in place, somehow something's going wrong because I was never contacted. So I'm here at the meeting. I was aware there was a notice. When I spoke to Mr. Hernandez earlier this year, I believe that I knew where the tenants were. I gave him the address, but apparently the name didn't match the person on the bill. Where I found out, I'm getting mail from 10 different people. There was only one person on the contract. So I don't know if they were using a different name. I guess that's private, so I couldn't be given the name to say, yes, that's them. But I did drive by. It seemed like it was their cars. So I've made every effort to try and find this for the district. But once again, I did not agree to this program that you have, and I was not informed of it. And now I'm here in front of you, basically telling you my case and the fact that there are people that this has slipped through the cracks. I guess that's all I have to say. But once again, I didn't agree anything, and no one informed me of anything. That's it. My name is Nate Womack.
Thank you. Did you get that for the record? Because I don't have a card. Thank you so much. Okay, this happens every year. Mr. Cody, can you opine quickly on the way that the district code works with respect to landlords and tenants?
Well, I certainly can, but I would defer to staff if they want to answer first and can hand it to me if that makes sense.
But that's fine. Go on up.
We have reviewed the district code in length, specifically District Code 150060 regarding the liability for payment, which explicitly states that owners, their tenants, and other users of property respect to which a service is delinquent are jointly and severally liable for payment. And those are the district codes that we have followed in our application of our procedures, including the discontinuance of service for non-payment policy, which provides specific guidelines that staff will follow before water services is discontinued. And so, I am familiar with the particular account that's being discussed this evening, and certain accounts, depending on when those tenants moved out, it could have been during a period where we had just reinstated our shut-off policies. And so it's something that, we attempted to collect directly from the tenants and had been working extensively with these tenants to try to, pay off their balances, and provided multiple payment arrangements, and worked directly with the collection agency to try to collect on this account. And those efforts, unfortunately, were unsuccessful.
Thank you.
Well, President Halkett, I will add one thing on there. The code provisions that Mr. Hernandez references have been in the code for 30 years. This is not a new policy.
Got it. Okay, I got a little off script, so we've got public comment. Any other public comment? So I'm going to hit the gavel and close the public hearing, and then we're going to move to the board, and we can kick this around some more. All right, public hearing is now closed. I will hold board discussion. Anybody want to start? Here you go. Yeah.
And I think it's more tied to the attachment here, and staff memos does not align as a result, both in the body and in the exhibit. So just calling it out that those reference numbers for the delinquency total is adjusted as stated in the resolution, and that's what we're incorporating in our action to support this. So it's the strikeouts of the account totals both in the summary and in the detail section, and then incorporated into Exhibit A. So there's likely an item or items that would be removed from section or Exhibit A, page 41 of the packet. I'll leave it at that.
Georgia?
This comes up every single year. Have we made any improvements in the way we contact property owners to let them know that they're responsible no matter what their tenant does? Have we done anything more? Every year this comes up.
Yeah, so this year we've as part of the delinquency process, we've sent out multiple notices earlier in the process. So our first notice went out in May, early May, to try to give the property owners a little bit more time to work with us and try to reach out to tenants or provide updated information for the tenants, contact information, so that we could try to reach out to them and collect before we got to this point. But I think the biggest improvements have been in our enforcement of our shut-off process. So we've been very proactive in ensuring that we're sending out the 7-day shut-off notices to account holders that have delinquent accounts, and then our shutting off service if they don't comply with their obligation to pay. So that has been an improvement in that it's managing delinquencies throughout the year. And I think for the majority of the accounts that are being levied this year are, have balances under $1,000. Some are minimal, balances. And so that process of ensuring that we're managing those delinquencies year round has definitely helped. Unfortunately, there are, I believe, a number of accounts that perhaps a tenant moved out shortly after we reinstated some of these procedures, and we just try our best to, in those situations, notify the property owners much sooner in the process so that they are aware that there is a delinquent balance on their.
But in this case, he wouldn't have known or wasn't notified until October 1st of last year?
So perhaps it was shortly after their tenant moved out.
Yeah, and he moved in.
Yeah, and so it's through those exchanges of if a property moves in and the tenant moving out has a delinquent balance, then we're disclosing that information, because at that point the tenant has a delinquent balance. And in some situations, if there is a prolonged delinquency that we just we've given the tenant an opportunity to enroll in a payment arrangement and they're not complying with those terms, then we're proactively reaching out to property owners to make them aware of the delinquency.
But you're not reaching out until that point?
Right. There's really
property owners now.
Right. There's really no mechanism in place to ensure that anytime a a tenant is moving out that has a delinquent balance, that the next person assuming responsibility for the account is a property owner. And so, there may be a new tenant that is moving in, starting service. So then when we're issuing final bills on that existing tenant that has a delinquent balance, we're still working with them to try to, get those accounts paid.
But at that point, we still haven't notified the property owner.
Not at that exact time, right? So we do try to, refer these accounts to the collection agency so that they can try to collect on our behalf before we take further action.
I'm not worried about that part. I want to know if we've made any effort to change the way we can notify the property owner early on, or do we even have that information early on? When someone signs up their account, do they have to say they're the tenant?
Yes, they self-disclose if they're the tenant or
do we ask them at that moment who the property owner is?
Yeah, at times we're able to gather that information. We try our best to try to collect the property owner's information if it's not already on the account.
But if when they sign up, we don't actually directly on the application ask for the property owner's name.
No, we don't.
Okay. Then my suggestion would be to bring this up at some point in the future. We need to change the way we notify the property owner because, like I said, this happens every single year. Unfortunately, you are responsible for your tenant, and there's not a lot we can do about that. But it's infuriating to know. I mean, you must be infuriated. I would be to know that when you stepped into it or became aware of it, it was already at $1,700. I'm sorry for that. But that would be my suggestion at this point. I don't know, maybe the other thing might be that, no, I don't know what else we could do, to tell you the truth.
What does the application include in asking questions about? Is the account opened in the tenant's name? But we should have a box then. I would think. I'm not familiar with this district because I'm in San Ramon. I get my water from East Bay Mud, but there would be a box that would say, "Are you a renter or are you the owner?" And if they check renter, that somehow should trigger a reaction on our part to either go back or before you approve service, have them list the property owner's address.
So
I think that's where the gap is happening.
yes, and so that at that point, we can notify the property owner that, hey, they're 3 months behind or whatever it is, and don't forget, you're responsible for this. But again, in this case, I'm not sure what we can do.
Oh, I was waiting for discussion to be done. Well, thanks again for bringing this to our attention. Appreciate that. So, on these accounts that you had shared with us, how long have they been delinquent for?
So it varies. Some may
Like
have
just average,
um,
or give me the range.
it's hard to say. Some accounts are kind of more recent, but they're at least 90 days delinquent. So I would say within the last 6 months or so.
You know, I think kind of going back and then over the last 5 years, let's say if we look at that and we looked at our trends, are we having less delinquent accounts? Are we having more delinquent accounts? Are we about the same? Like, where are we trending?
We are certainly seeing far
Less.
less delinquent accounts, even compared to last year.
Okay.
And I think, and so I think in my experience, it's, I've seen a huge decline in the amount of delinquencies as well on specific accounts because we are shutting off service earlier in the process, right? So our threshold is, under 200, right under $200 if they have a delinquent balance and don't pay off that delinquent balance or enroll in a payment arrangement, then we're shutting off service. So that's certainly keeping overall balances at a minimum.
Right. So, and I know we're not supposed to really address public comment here. So, but what I wanted to just kind of hypothetically talk about, let's say you said $200. So let's say, a case where it was maybe you're getting something at 1,000. How did we get there? I guess my question is, why wasn't it shut off earlier? I'm just curious.
And some, especially older accounts, had significantly larger delinquent balances, and we had been working with those account holders extensively to try to get them to pay off their delinquent balances. And I suspect that it may have been one of those accounts that carried over from previous years where the discontinuance of service was not in effect.
Okay. So that's probably an opportunity for us to tighten up, right? I mean, because that's an area. So I definitely applaud how we've come down and decreased that, which is, that's definitely, kudos to you and your team. But I think what we need to make sure is that we still have some opportunities on how we could still tighten that up some more. So I would say let's look at seeing how we could be more aggressive with that. you know, I definitely think, yes, we, you know, should take somewhat of an empathetic approach, but at the same time, we have to kind of, you know, be pretty consistent and firm on kind of where we're going to have that cutoff. You know, if we start doing things arbitrarily, that gets a little bit more challenging. So I think I would just caution us in making sure we do have a little bit more tighter controls on that. I do agree with what some of the other directors had mentioned is on the application process. You know, that's one thing I put in my notes too here to ask is, you know, when we're asking, for example, someone's signing up, ask, you know, are you a renter? Or are you an owner? And if you're a renter, make it mandatory that they have to have the owner's name on there. Otherwise, we're not going to turn on the service until that information is there. So I understand we may have been doing things certain ways, and this is our procedures, but we need to relook at that and think about how we can make it better and be more effective. So those are some things I think, I would say for the team to take back and to look at, seriously. That's all I have for my comments, but appreciate everything and bringing this to our attention.
Yeah, certainly that's very helpful, and I think that's what we will continue to look for opportunities to improve our processes. One of the things that I wanted to also point out is through our messaging, you know, partnering with the cities is to ensure that property owners also have information available on things that they can do to have that information regarding their tenants' accounts. One idea is that, you know, when their tenants are moving out, they could also reach out to the district to ensure that, you know, the tenant moving out has an account in good standing. And that's one way that we can establish that partnership to, collaboratively, manage delinquencies going forward. So I did want to point that out because that could also be an effective way of working with them to ensure that they have that information readily available in a time that they can act on that information when the tenants move out.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
Just to kind of maybe add on, and this may be the opportunity that strikes itself. So as the two directors mentioned, incorporating the owner's information, but I think there's an opportunity more tied to the parcel number and the tax assessor information. We have the data that's stored at the county level, how we get that. But when you have an account that's flagged with an owner or a tenant, instantaneously send them a notification saying, hey, we realize and recognize you're an owner of a property. These are your responsibilities, citing that section 1.50.060 and what it means, right? And then when an account is getting closed, again, a notification that's going to the owner. I know it's a little bit burdensome, but at the same token, as we're having these decline, maybe it's manageable. So anyway, I think the action here was a follow-up item. To come back, maybe you can look at the different solutions. Sounds like we have a couple that are presented, but then there'll be a little bit of a reality clause inside of here.
Yeah, all right.
I have one question. Sorry. Is he eligible for a payment plan on this without losing his current service?
On
the owner.
The owner, they have payment arrangements
Okay.
available to them. If this is a tenant's account that's delinquent, then we can.
But I'm talking about the owner of this particular account. Is it available? Is it possible for him to set up a payment arrangement, or has that already been done?
I would have to look at that
Okay.
specific account, provide more details.
If I can, Director Von Heater Leopold, the placement on the tax roll is effectively at the outer limit of the type of payment plan you might have, because it's not all due today. There's two payments spread out over the course of the fiscal year.
Right.
So November and April of next year.
About that. We're already at that point.
It is effectively a payment plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so good discussion. I feel for you. I'm not sure there's much we can do for relief right now, but we're hearing you and we're kicking it around. Let's do that in the future. The owner at point of application from a tenant will probably be challenging. Many tenants don't even know who owns the place they're renting. They deal with property management companies. They literally don't know who they're renting from ultimately. So the legally responsible party would not be something the tenant would even know. Number two is, as we're kicking around ideas to do better communication with landlords, both Dublin and San Ramon require landlords to have a business license to legally rent property in those cities. It seems like it'd be relatively straightforward to get with our friends in both cities and get a big old disclaimer thing somewhere in that packet. When I get my business license, is like big letters saying, you are jointly and severable, you're liable for utility bills from your tenant per this code. Because I'm sure landlords sign the business. I mean, that should be pretty red letter. It should be pretty easy to follow at that point. If we get a landlord who doesn't have the license, well, then that's between them and the city. But I would explore approaching the cities and seeing how we can get the communication way up front. That doesn't stop the fact that we'll have 30 years of landlords out there who don't know this. We might. I hate to add projects to staff, but we may need a mini project. Now that being said, in perspective, it says 21 here, but I've heard the word 19. I mean, we went from 90 to 19 in 1 year through changing some processes. So kudos there. I want to make sure staff is feeling like we're talking this through because we want to make it better. But I'm pleased with the progress here. Not so pleased with the one account. God knows how we got somebody $1,700 behind. Maybe it's a giant house. Maybe, who knows? Hopefully it's a one-off.
We have the parcel number, so
yeah,
we can always get the owner's name that way.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. I mean, we're not going to dig. I would propose. I don't know how many parcels are in our jurisdiction, but staff proactively digging parcels would be a difficult
I think we could work with the county assessor at that point.
Yeah. Anyway, that's for people who
Yes.
know more than you and I to solve. The people who actually, the nuts and bolts folks. Not hearing any other discussion, I will entertain a motion.
All right, since nobody else is doing it, I'll put a motion forward to go ahead and approve the annual delinquent water and sewer charges levy report and direct the levy and collection of delinquent water and sewer charges on the 2026-2027 Alameda County and Contra Costa County secured property tax rolls.
That was a very long and well-formed motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Off we go. 8B. Receive presentation on transition to customer-paid processing fees, electronic check payments. Recommended actions, receive presentation and provide direction. No formal votes. We're just going to talk this one through. Staff.
Hi, good evening, President Halkett, members of the board. Jaden Sanga, Director of Finance, presenting on board requested update on the transition of electronic check processing fees to DSRSD customers. On this slide, we have some background on the utility transaction processing fees. DSRSD offers several methods for customers to pay their utility bills, and some of those payment methods result in transaction fees charged by the payment processor. Historically, these transaction processing fees were paid by DSRSD customers up until early 2020. At the start of COVID-19 pandemic, districts started absorbing these transaction fees to provide some financial relief and to support timely payments from our customers. At October 7, 2025 board meeting, board directed staff to restore the pre-COVID practice of passing the credit card transaction fees back to customers. This transition was completed at the beginning of this year, calendar year 2026. At the same board meeting, board also asked staff to review reverting the e-check processing fees back to customers as well. Currently, the e-check transaction fee is $1.95 per transaction. Here we have some data on the DSRSD customer portal and all the payments processed in calendar year 2025. As part of the ERP conversion to Tyler Munis, District launched a new payment portal for our utility customers where they can use their bank account or credit card to process their utility payments. In calendar year 2025, total 53,515 payments were processed on the portal, resulting in $222,000 in payment processing fees absorbed by the district. This includes approximately 34,000 credit card transactions and 19,000 e-check transactions. As mentioned, in January 26, District reverted credit card processing fees back to customers, but District is still paying for the e-check fees. Looking at the first 6 months of data for this year, we had 16,900 e-check transactions on the portal, and the processing fees are expected to be around $60,000 paid by the District for this calendar year. Here we have a few more e-check evaluation points and the recommendation for the board to consider this evening. Looking at the first 6 months of data for calendar year 2026, we are seeing an increase in the use of e-check by DSRC customers as a free option, and this is increasing the processing cost absorbed by the district. In addition, similar to the credit card fees, staff recommends that we ensure consistency across all utility transaction processing fees to be paid by customers, including the e-check transaction fees. That said, there are ways customers can still make payments without paying a fee, and those include online bill pay through their bank, ACH debit by the district every month, and check or cash payments. And at the end, staff is making the recommendation to reestablish customer-paid e-check processing fees beginning in January of 2027. Next step, as part of today's presentation, we are requesting any feedback from the board on staff recommendation. In addition, staff will work with DSRSD Public Affairs team to develop customer outreach and plan on notifying customers before this change goes into effect at the beginning of calendar year 2027. And with that, I conclude the presentation. Happy to take any questions.
No cards, no public. Go to the board. Sure, somebody wants to say something. Free for all. Go for it. Jump ball.
All right. This is more just for clarity and understanding. For the processing fees for credit card payment, what was that amount per
It was 3.65% of the
percent.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, because it comes out to be around $6.47 per transaction. So, okay. And then the 37,000 distributed off of that is kind of around the same numbers that we're talking there. Just for clarity, other districts that are similar to ours, what is their situation? What do they kind of do? Best practices there?
So it's a mixed bag. We looked at East Bay Mud. They are passing the fees back to customers. We looked at the ACWD district, and they are absorbing the fees. So we looked at a few other districts. So it's some are passing the fees on to the customers, some are absorbing them.
Thank you very much.
I would add that most of the agencies that we look at don't offer an e-check option, so there are a number of other options that we do offer that has no processing fee.
Again, going back to pre-COVID, we used to absorb all of the fees.
Pre-COVID, customers were paying for all the fees.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Correct, you're right.
Very good. Anybody else?
No.
So my only observation, and this is being a crusty old accountant, is paper checks are the most expensive way to get paid.
Correct, and it's
There's no fee, but they're by far the most expensive means of payment to process.
I mean,
For us.
district is still paying a fee.
For us.
District is still paying a fee on the processing of the paper check. That's going through a lockbox, and we're paying that
labor,
fee.
yeah.
But that's nearly impossible to pass that on to the customer.
And I wasn't advocating passing it on to customers.
Yeah.
I have I'm going to use a semi derogatory. I have a problem with nickel and diming customers who actually want to pay us on time. Um, I get it because it adds up, especially credit cards. $266,000 is real money. $60,000 to get paid quickly on time. I'm not quite as sure. I'm not going to step in front of this thing. If everybody else is fine, that's cool. I just wanted to say my piece.
I think one of the things I would add is that, as is kind of alluded to, these are fees that can be assessed at the point of the transaction. The fees we pay when somebody mails a check to the lockbox is actually probably only about 20 cents to process that. ACH similar. So
I was thinking the labor and all that. I mean,
yeah. So we're paying the
receiving
bank
checks costs a lot of money.
We're paying the bank about 20 cents, and most of those checks that go to a lockbox, there's no person that ever touches them. They're opened and processed by a machine. It's the people who come into the office in person and pay with cash or check. That's where it's most expensive, and the transaction volume of people who actually come into the office is very low.
Got it. Makes sense. I mean, being a tiny bit snarky, but I can support passing this back through. I wish we didn't live in a world where we had to do that, but that's fine. It sounds like the board is supportive. I'm not hearing anybody besides me kind of snarking a little bit, but not very much.
It's just frustrating to have to pay. But the bank has to make their money somehow.
Yep.
And
Just one thing I would just say is if we do pass this, is just make sure we monitor it to make sure there's no unintended consequences. So I think that's important for us to make sure. And I would ask if we can come back and give us a status update, 6 to 12 months, and see what effect has it had on other areas. So kind of just like what President Halke was saying, are we nickel and diming, and are we being penny wise, pound foolish? And that's kind of the other thing we need to look at. So I would just say let's reassess.
definitely one of the things we'll focus on in the customer outreach is all the remaining ways they can continue to pay their bill with no fee.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, an e-check is an ACH. It's just one they push to us versus one we pull from them.
Correct.
And why the banks have to treat those two so differently?
I don't think it's the bank so much as the company maintaining the portal.
Yeah. Somebody has to get paid.
Yep.
MasterCard,
Got it.
Visa.
Very good. I think we have clear direction. Go forth and conquer, and bring back some data. Make sure that suddenly nobody's paying us, kind of thing. Very good. Thank you very much. There's no formal action on 8B besides some feedback, which you've given, so I think we're good there. We're going to go to 8C and receive a presentation on Information Technology Master Plan.
All right. Well, good evening, President Halkett, board members, and staff and public. I'm John Wunderlich, Assistant General Manager for Finance and Administration. I'll give a brief introduction on this item and then turn it over to Renee Collins, our ITS Manager, and she'll walk us through the bulk of the presentation. One of the strategies identified in the district's strategic plan is to support one of the strategies identified in the district's strategic plan to support resilient and effective operations is to update and maintain a long-term plan to guide technology investments and resources. This item will update the board on a major planning effort for the district's IT resources as identified in the referenced strategy. Specifically, the IT master plan provides a roadmap for software investments for the next 5 years and hardware investments for the next 10 years, and is the result of substantial effort by staff throughout the district. The project was also supported by a consultant with substantial expertise and experience developing IT master plans for local governments. We're not asking for any specific action from the board this evening, just to receive the presentation and, of course, provide us any feedback and direction related to the IT master plan. And then we can take that feedback as we work to then finalize the planning document. Funding for fiscal year 2027 IT master plan initiatives was included in the mid-cycle budget, and funding for future years will be considered as part of the district's next CIP and budget processes. So again, we're not asking for any funding to be approved tonight or anything like that. There will still be opportunities for that in the future. And so with that introduction, I will turn it over to Renee to talk about the IT master planning process and the resulting proposed plan.
Good evening, President Honka, members of the board. My name is Renee Collins. I'm the IT manager for the district, and I'd like to give you some information on our latest master plan update. It's been a little while since we've been before you on this subject. The last time we were here was in 2017. IT was a little different then, pretty much focusing on fixing, maintaining our systems, reactive supporting to things, keep it all running, right? We were very technology focused. Well, as things have changed a bit, now technology has moved into everybody's life. There is an AI for everything, and everyone uses technology constantly, both in their personal life and in their job. So to that end, IT has shifted a bit and become more of a strategic business partner. We actually are involved in leading, planning district-wide initiatives. We manage the information, not just the system. We're proactive in cybersecurity, active in data and innovation in systems, and we are focused on outcomes and more strategy focused. So to that end, an IT master plan was definitely due for an update. So we contracted with Third Wave Technologies. They've done several of these nationwide. They're very respected in this area. And they walked us through the process of updating the plan. So what came out of what the plan is as John mentioned, is a roadmap that aligns initiatives and technology investments with where we want to be in the next 5 and 10 years. So I started by assessing our current state, evaluating our systems, looking for gaps, risks, areas that needed improvement, and started talking about initiatives to move us forward and prioritizing those with a focus on supporting our mission and the district's goals and strategies. So the engagement took about a year and was broken into 4 pieces of information gathering. The first being what they call the employee voice. This was a district-wide survey to all staff, basically capturing input on the tools they use, pain points they have, any needs that they foresee in the future. The consultant also held 3 sessions with the IT group, very focused on exploring our current system state, talking about interdependencies between our systems, looking for any constraints, and looking for any opportunities. Next piece they did were one-on-one interviews with the entire full management staff, where they spoke with them about priorities that they had, where they saw us going in the future, talking about concerns and goals from their division and area of expertise. All of the input up to that point was then focused into workshops that we used cross-sectional staff from every department based on the subject. So I'll dive a little deeper into all of these areas in the upcoming slides. The input that came out of all 4 of those areas was then consolidated, was defined improvement areas in major areas, and created draft initiative, a list of projects, things to go on the roadmap. Costs were developed. These costs do not reflect staff costs. They're just if I wanted to hire a consultant to do a piece. And those initiatives were then sent to the senior managers for prioritization based on need, staffing considerations, and somewhat costs. So let's dive a little deeper into the survey results and what they found as they started talking to people. One that I like a lot was that they felt that they had a strong foundation in IT. 65% gave good or very good marks to help desk and support of their functions. They were also very happy with the new collaborative tools that we've rolled out in the last few years. Teams and SharePoint came in at the top of the list for good collaboration, communication, and information sharing. There were a few targeted opportunity areas, and I'll dive into those a little bit deeper. But there was an ongoing feedback about the need to be a little bit more innovative, the need for integration, streamlined workflows, and better access to data. The areas of opportunity. The first one was improving our core application and software usability. That came in at 53%, identified it as an area of need. This is making things easier to use, less clicks, a little more intuitive. The second one was training. Common theme from most places, but definitely training needed on our technology, on the use of it, and how to do it better, where to find things. The last one was modernizing our mobile devices in the field. They would like slightly newer smartphones, maybe a little bit better access to stuff while in the field. All the input from the surveys and the interviews developed the workshops. Let's talk a little bit about them. We had 20 workshops. Each workshop, if you can imagine, is at least 4 hours long. We had 64 individual staff and management participate in these, and it took about 6 months. Feedback we got from staff was very good on it, and many of the staff members participated in more than one workshop. So it was quite a big lift, but we got a lot of information. So what did we talk about? One of the big areas was work orders, simplifying the tasks that we do, reducing the amount of clicks, improving the flow of how we track our work through our computerized maintenance management system. The second area was on data and information management. This was another very big area, where our data and documents live, how they're stored, what our standards are for consistent use of our data, and trying to have a single source of truth. The other areas, customer and utility data, improving on how we do QA/QC and our meter data. We do a good job now, but we'd like to be able to standardize some of that and have the data more readily available to the rest of the staff for use. We also talked about CIP and financial processes, refining how we do the project accounting. We've made some great strides on that in the last year, but there are a few projects later down the line to continue in that area. We also looked at regulatory and lab processes, strengthening reporting and permitting, how we do that, looking at the LIMS, which is our laboratory software, and making some improvements there in configuration and reporting out of that. While this was going on, there was also an independent cybersecurity assessment that was done. I want to point out that no significant deficiencies or findings of any priority were identified. We passed that one with high marks. So the things that came out of the workshop was a list of initiatives, ideas for improvement, and they were grouped into kind of big areas, big categories. One of the first being enterprise data and information management. This was an area that we can improve on. It's always something people struggle with. We're trying to establish some governance and standards, single source of truth again. Maybe seeing how we might be able to automate. This could be an area we could leverage some of the tools in the technology field to help us with QA/QC. One of the first projects in year one will be an enterprise data management plan for the district. There's follow-up projects in that area regarding our specific data sets and diving into them and developing standards for those. Those would be in subsequent years or later in year one. Areas of process improvement, strengthening our organizational performance, making the processes more efficient, and improving coordination. So this was a big area. There's a lot of them in that area, evaluating some of our systems, considering replacements of things like our timekeeping and how we do it. And ultimately, toward the end, just looking at our voice system again, right? Is it time to refresh it? Is there any improvements needed in the AV in the boardroom? So those all fall into that category. Year one, the first project is going to be on actually an improved coordination and process improvement in our meter sets. We set our meter sets just fine, but our coordination as it passes between our departments and between our systems, how the data flows from permitting into billing and collection could be improved. So that will be the year one project in that area. Work orders came up repeatedly for improving the interface. This one involves a lot of staff time. The planning for this one placed it into year 2, basically due to staffing resources and need to get through the other projects. This is a big undertaking, and you'll see that one of the larger hits on the finances. The other area is the enterprise content management and on-base, improving our investment there. We did get a reaffirmation from our consultant that on-base is still one of the top document management systems, and our continued investment in it should benefit the district. We're looking at simplifying the interface of how people find things. Right now, it can be a little cumbersome to new, especially to new staff. So that'll be one of the areas. In year 1, we're going to look at making a simplified search in separate categories of data within the area, trying to make it a lot easier for staff to find things. In subsequent years, we'll be importing more of the HR data, safety documents, and improvements in the regulatory document storage. That concludes the project discussion. How much does it cost? We're looking at a 5-year total of about $4.2 million. With almost $3 million of that coming out of the CIP and the rest out of operating. 10-year total is $6.36 million. Again, the last 5 years of this plan are the majority asset replacement of infrastructure projects. There's not as much professional services there. The ongoing operating cost looks to be around $217, and that's probably on the high end. John mentioned, the projects for the year 2027 were handled in mid-year, and it is funded for us to handle the first projects. The remaining will be brought forward as part of the IT program in the budget cycle and in the CIP review coming up later this year. Next steps. Well, we're going to move from preparation to implementation, right? Looking at initiating the first year projects, the data management plan, the process improvement to meter set that we mentioned, and then following up with the some smaller ones for the first year. The list of priorities would be evaluated annually to make adjustments for new technology, changes in priorities, projects that took longer than we anticipated. So the ongoing rhythm for this would be the CIP update and the budget update to address the IT program for funding and the CIP program funding. Sorry, I'm not a finance person. But we will go through an annual evaluation of the priorities, reassess where we are, make sure that things are moving. So with that concludes the presentation.
Very good. Well done. Public comment? See no public? We will move on. So no action on this, just some discussion. I'm sure I saw some notes here. So who wants to go?
On the funding, I'm assuming that aside from our internal costs for the employees themselves, the training, you've got some money anticipated for what consultants and the cost of software itself?
The numbers that you see here reflect the consultants and the cost of software. The internal staffing costs are not reflected in those numbers, but they would be included in any CIP project that came forward.
I'm pleased to see such a disciplined approach. It's a roadmap that I won't be able to see the final outcome, but it's a good start. Thank you.
Awesome.
I'd go ahead and say the same. Very nice presentation, pretty thorough. A couple of thoughts or questions that I do have. So in the workshops, we had 64 attendees. How many employees do we have total, including management?
We have about 130, 135. It varies.
About 50% being represented in the workshops.
And I would say that Those folks that were assigned to the workshops also had responsibilities to work with their work groups to get input to bring to those workshops.
So we did do some reach out. there.
Correct.
What my concern was field personnel not being able to do that because they're performing their daily jobs that are quite demanding. Not saying everybody else.
No, a lot of the comment and input, and I think several of the folks here, including Dan, could echo this, were brought forward to those managers, supervisors, and senior leads that participated in these workshops.
Okay. So the main thing is to make sure that everyone's voices had an opportunity to be heard. Because one thing I do value about DSRSD is that they're trying to engage everyone. So want to make sure that that's happening. If it's not, let's work on it. I'm not saying it's not. And I kind of also draw the same conclusion here where in your strong IT foundation and trusted support, you had 65% ranking, good and very good. So now my question is, what was the remaining percentage of that? Where was it sitting? And then out of the total staff, how much percentage turnout did we get?
Staff survey, we had close to 70 staff fill out the survey. I don't know the exact numbers on what was outside the 65. There was a small portion in the excellent and some in the satisfactory. I do know that the needs improvement was very low, but we can get you numbers if you would like.
Well, I think the critical piece there, if you're indicating around 70 turnout, is for me, for an organization of this, that's a little low. And so I think there's some hidden cards that have to be rolled over to really understand what the true organization is. And we're building our decisions based on, a very percentage-wise lower turnout than desired. So the question would be, did we have it as a short window? Did we do it at the wrong time? Was it during a vacation season? I'm not here to challenge and question. What I'm doing is just posturing and saying, how can we make sure that everyone is being accounted for that needs to? And then the flip side of these surveys are, when you don't have a respondent, chances are they're not in alignment. And so those outliers tend to be a little revealing as well. And I'm being a little sensitive to it because IT infrastructure requires that everyone participate and ensure that not only is your data secure, but that the environment we believe in is as secure. We don't want to be a headline, right? And I know our IT team is doing a phenomenal job on cybersecurity. Without me elaborating more in detail, but our framework is very sound. And that's where I'm really proud to say that we have that kind of staff. Two areas that I didn't see, and it could be embedded in other areas, and so it's just some thought process, are systems that focus and work on knowledge retention and disbursement of that knowledge. We have a lot of personnel that may have years or best practices that are important to be shouted downwards to the newer generation of employees. And newer generation doesn't necessarily mean younger. Okay, just means newer to DSRSD. And the other one that I think is important is maintenance of assets and being able to leverage the latest technology on your support tickets, its frequency, life cycle uses, because that has an impact on maybe when we need to consider them cycling back in for our CIP. So again, these are not to be taken negatively. Please do not. This was a phenomenal report. Staff's done a great job. There's always better, right? So if we set the bar where we're at, we're never going to improve. So if you guys are already phenomenal, I'm saying let's go one step more phenomenal. Great work. Thank you.
How about the side over here?
Well, just thank you very much for the report. It was nice to get an update. I would just like to see us make sure that as council member, wow. Like 40 years ago, district board member Arun said that we'd like to make a little bit more effort to make sure everyone was informed of the survey and what it means. I mean, it's funny, when I came in, he asked me if I had looked up to see if anyone else had filed, and I said, I don't know how to do that. And I said, it might as well be written in Italian because I'm not the IT person. I mean, I go back to DOS, which is like talking ancient times, but which says to me, because I struggled with this in my regular job, training on the new programs and the new things to do is critically important. Because even your older employees who have been using, I don't know, Word or something, and they always know what things to set up automatically, suddenly there's a update and they can do 4 more things, but they don't know how to do it. So that would be my only add to the information. Other than that, I think it's great we're finally doing this.
I guess it's my turn.
Whatever you want it to be, your turn.
All right. Yeah, thanks again for putting this together. The only thing I would just say here, and when I look at slide 3, and it talks about prioritizing innovation, I felt the presentation was lacking on that part of it. And I just, so what I'd like to see is what are we doing? What are we going into, especially with AI, and how are we approaching those things and building that into this plan? I didn't feel there was enough information on that where how we could work smarter and better and look at those types of things and how that can help us. So that's something I would just say, if we could go back to the table and re-look at those areas, and that would be, I think, beneficial to the organization, as we start moving into looking at exploring those areas.
Thank you very much. Not hearing anything else, I think. Have you gotten the feedback you need? Okay.
Well, little thing.
If you want to, yeah.
Survey was open 30 days.
Okay. Yeah.
And the AI, while not expressly stated, to me is a tool and is implied in every one of our projects as we go forward. Many of our current software already have an AI component, so that as we go through each project and initiative, that tool is considered on how it helps you understand. I didn't necessarily highlight it because it's already on the table.
Great. Okay.
Well done.
Appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
All right. Any other feedback you need? Do you guys over here on this side have the feedback you need? Good. Good. All right. If we have all the feedback you need, we can move on from 8C. Well done. Now we're going to go on to 9A, board member items. 9A1, Joint Powers Authority and Committee Reports. Somebody spent some time with our friends at Derwent. I want to hear about it. So who's going to do that?
I'm happy to first.
Okay, go ahead.
Or if you want to.
No, that's fine.
Both
Go ahead.
myself and Director Von Heater Leopold attended it. It was a special meeting, closed session, and sorry, I can't tell you anymore. But that was nothing to report on.
Nothing to report.
Yes, that's all I can say.
And that's all you can say for this all closed session.
It's very strange being here with nobody. Nobody at all.
All right. It's a mystery. I'll be waiting for a report from that one at some point. When it becomes not closed. 9A.
Is that why you were excited to hear about it?
Just trying to keep the room. I'm trying to keep everybody engaged here.
We can, cut off a little bit of speculation. The closed session was a authority manager performance evaluation. So you can guess from there. You've done those with your own.
That can go in many ways. 9A2, submittal of written reports for days of service events attended by directors. Written reports to do, you mean, blah, blah, blah. I'll start with Georgiane because she always has one.
Yeah, I was going to let Ed go, but I'll go ahead and go. Both of us attended the special districts joint meeting between Alameda County and Contra Costa County out at Diablo Water, which is like, across the hills. But it was a good meeting. They have a nice new facility. They took up everyone on a tour, although they have basically the same treatment we do, so it was nothing new. And I actually wasn't able to go. It's a long walk to the facility. They sit in the same yard as is Iron Horse, right? The sanitary area. Anyway, it was a good meeting. Yeah, we had a little bit of business to discuss, but other than that, it was mostly just camaraderie.
Any more to add for that event? Well, yeah, but same event. Might as well do one event over. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was a first time visit for me out to it's Iron House.
Oh, not Iron Horse,
checked
sorry.
because I called it Iron Horse myself. Yeah, I didn't realize that that they and Diablo were essentially
Same.
the same, and they certainly occupy adjacent space. I think the meeting itself was primarily taken up with our CSDA legislative analyst that commented, made an interesting comment in that he felt he complimented our two chapters on being among the most politically active in the state and utilizing our positions to exercise leverage on pending legislation, which I thought was interesting because I always assumed that with LA Metro and everybody down there that they would tend to govern, and it turns out we're among the more active chapters. Georgine did not go on the tour. I understand why. I went on it, and my age caught up with me. That building is 3 stories tall. There's a lot of climbing.
I knew I couldn't do stairs.
Yeah. The other thing that I found interesting was that their system, their recycled water treatment system, was designed in-house by their engineering staff. Other than that, it was a good meeting. There was a outstanding lunch. That was for sure.
Sounds informative.
Which was provided by our bank.
Oh, good.
5-star.
All right.
We've been talking our non-member members into helping pay for the lunches and et cetera and the food so that the district, whoever's hosting the meeting, doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, that sounds fair. All right. Somebody's champing at the bit over here. Go for it. No, I think.
Yeah. Continue. Do you want me to go ahead? Okay. So both Director Duarte and myself attended the State of the County address by District 2 Supervisor Candace Anderson. And just some things I thought I would just share with the group on highlight here. She mentioned that adopted back in May, it was a budget of $7.25 billion for the upcoming year. 55% goes to health services. She said there's going to be impacts to the health programs will be about $951 million, so close to $1 billion over the next 5 years due to federal government cuts. Homeless services will lose approximately about $14.6 million over the next year. A couple other things I thought were interesting. She mentioned property tax revenues increased about 3.4%. Pensions are 91% funded, so that's come up from previous years. Unemployment's at 4.0%. She did mention, and Director Duarte may have more information on this, but Blackhawk Plaza will be put up for sale, and I think it's zoned for mixed use. And the Family Justice Center for South County in Danville was open back in December 2024. So those were just a few things that she had. It was a great meeting, quite informative, and yeah, it was a nice luncheon.
Two points that I think was interesting that she brought up was one was the Blackhawk Plaza, because if you follow next door,
Yeah,
it's on everybody's mind. for many concerns. Number one, the adjacent property owners, what's gonna go up there, with the mandates from Sacramento on affordable housing. That's always a first and foremost question. But as he said, it's in foreclosure. The creditors have it right now, so there have been no publicized plans put out. The other little mini statistic I was interested to hear is that San Ramon has five homeless persons. They're tracking them to that level.
That's interesting.
Microchip.
Okay. Anything for you?
No.
Nothing. Any other days of service? All right. Any other days of service before we get ourselves in trouble? We're on camera after all. I'm not hearing any, so I'm going to go to 9A3. Request new agenda items to be placed on a future board or committee agenda. Anybody have anything besides the stuff we've already put into the hopper during the meeting? Not seeing. We will move to 9B. Staff reports. I know we have a written run.
We do. We have the GM monthly report included, and as part of that report, the board had asked for some additional information regarding the Doherty Valley assessments and specifically how the State Water Project charges are assessed in Alameda County. So I'm going to turn it over to John Wunderlich to just review that part of the GM monthly report for the board.
Yeah, I think the main thing with this is that there's a certain amount of additional state water supply that was that Zone 7 went to procure based on a negotiated agreement to find additional water for Doherty Valley so it could be developed. And so that share of state water costs based on that water supply is what's allocated to Doherty Valley, with the rest of the Zone 7 state water allocation allocated to Alameda County. So I think that's the main thing, is everybody's paying their share based on how much was procured for each area. The difference, of course, that I think was highlighted last month is that there's a different methodology for how it's collected from the individual customers, with the folks in Alameda County paying a property tax based on the property's assessed value, and the customers in Doherty Valley paying per dwelling unit equivalent. And so, each single family home there is going to pay the same. It doesn't matter what the assessed valuation is. But again, each area is paying their appropriate share of the state water costs. So happy to take any questions on it.
Thank you for the clarification. Anything else?
Yeah, just a few more updates. I did want to share with the board that we are featured in the Pleasanton Weekly. They did a very nice spread on the wastewater treatment plant, including a fold out, and also specifically want to give kudos to Dan Gill, our operations director, for providing a tour for the reporter, and Aaron Steffen, our public affairs program administrator, who did a fantastic job providing information to the reporter. So we are going to include a copy of this in the GM communications update that goes out on Friday, but I would encourage you to check it out. I do think they did a really nice job. And then in terms of upcoming events, on Thursday, we do have the Tri-Valley Mayor's event. For those that you have signed up, it is a sold-out event, so if you did not sign up, it is unfortunately too late to attend that event. The following week is the CASA conference. I know a couple of the board members are signed up for that as well. Because the CASA conference is next week, we have canceled the August 4th board meeting because of the conflict, so the next board meeting will be August 18th.
Thank you very much. And I think that's I've ran my list. I think that's a wrap. So the meeting is adjourned at 7:20 or 7:19, if I'm to be precise. There we go.